having listened to, particularly to what David has just said, I almost felt like going home immediately.
Yeah.
Because it seems that my role as a local councillor, and as someone who is relatively supportive of the whole idea of the devolution deal for this region, yes, I'm now riddled with questions and with doubts. And for that I thank you.
That's what
It's always been your role to raise these questions. But let me just say that I feel at the moment as if I'm at a conference or a seminar of hydrologists and I'm the plumber who's just been brought in to deal with the question of how things might work locally. So I am parochial, I am a local councillor. I will be asked the week after next to vote on this question. I know how I'm going to vote, and nothing I've heard today is sufficiently powerful to make me change my mind about this. But as I say, I will vote with very considerable qualms about the effectiveness of what we're proposing, about its deliverability and so on. But all right, so I'm naive and I'm optimistic. First of all, I think the deal has got a certain solidity and security because it arises out of the most important principle in politics, which is expedience. I think George Osborne felt that it was expedient that some of the powers that presently reside with the central government should be delegated because there was a better chance that functioning at the local level, particularly in the question of economics, the economic development, investment strategies and so on, would work better if locally stimulated and locally organized and springing from local knowledge and local enterprise and local political cells, that there would be a greater benefit for the economy in decentralizing and devolving in the way that he proposed. And I still believe that that was and is the driver for this whole devolution thing. I think the government, the present government, and I think subsequent governments would too, really believe that this is not some sort of act of munificence. It's not the central government being generous with respect to localism or anything of that sort. They believe that this is one of the ways in which the economy can be made more efficient. With a more efficient economy, there is a bigger tax take. And one of the problems that Osborne faced was the diminishing tax take and the growing demands on the state. And he had to come up with a strategy that was much more productive, if you like, in terms of economic development, so that the tax take would increase and Westminster could afford the expenses of running a modern state. So I do believe that there is a substantial, practical, self-interested basis for this, and it's a mutual self-interest. I think insofar as people like Lewis feel that there's something in it for Cambridge, and there is very considerably something in it for Cambridge, I think the government also thinks that there's something in it for them and for what they want to do. And that seems to me to be a solid basis for an ongoing relationship. And talking of an ongoing relationship, I think this is probably only the first stage in a process that will widen and deepen. I think if and perhaps it will differ from one combined authority to another, but if, say, in our particular instance, the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, if that is shown to work, and we have set up the procedures that evidently demonstrate that it is working, I think the government will be more prepared than with less successful authorities to say, there you shall have more powers, and we will gladly divest ourselves of more and more of our power, and we will give you the means we will give you the growing fiscal means to finance the powers and the operations that we have given to you. I think another important element of this is that it will stimulate a national reconsideration of local governance. I mean, necessarily, we will have to rethink how we govern ourselves locally. And I'm not going to go into the business of predicting exactly what might emerge from this. But let's remember that subsidiarity requires that decisions are taken at the lowest level compatible with swift and efficient delivery. And so I think we can see that the outlines of what this new order might be. There is scant attention to the question of how Cambridge, the new Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Authority, let's call it the combined authority, will relate to adjoining authorities. But there is mention of a joint committee, so there is a feeling here of room for greater regional government. Secondly, we clearly need the combined authority itself at the next layer down. I think there's obviously a place for district councils and probably for single authorities. I mean, South Cambs and Cambridge, I think, are obvious candidates for some sort of single authority. And there's probably a place in rural areas for existing parish councils, and probably in places like Cambridge, in districts, there would be a greater place for residents' associations, area committees, things of that sort, to achieve the corresponding degree of localism that you might get through parish councils. But out of all of this, what seems to me to be the big question is what happens to the county council? You know, I am a member of the county council, I love it, and I enjoy all that it does, but I can see that if this devolution deal goes forward, it will be very considerably weakened. And the obvious question will arise, what does it exist for? And do its residual powers and services and interests and so on, could they not be reallocated more sensibly, many more of them given as the widening and deepening process that I spoke of with the combined authority, so that in a sense this combined authority will take over the functions currently undertaken by the county. And I think that that is a prospect that is very real. The other thing I want to refer to is the title of today's seminar, and to take it very, very seriously. The title is The North-South Divide, and I think it's mentioned in the East. Nowhere in the country, nowhere in Europe indeed, is the North-South divide as accentuated as it is in Cambridge. I think one of the things about living in Cambridge is that we somehow forget that there are places like Chatteris, Wisbech, Soham, market towns not more than 30 miles from Cambridge, where the levels of poverty, the levels of poor schooling, the levels of deprivation, unemployment, single mothers and so on, obesity, health problems, every conceivable deprivation indicator you like to induce indicates that Fenman is in a miserable condition compared with the prosperous South. And it's one of the things which I have got very considerable satisfaction from, is that I have found myself ironically arguing the case on the county council for Fenman, for places like Wisbech, and wondering why the members who represent those parts of the county do not seem to be, how can I put it, more active on behalf of their residents. And I mean, you can go on electing UKIP councillors who drum on about Europe as much as you like, but you know, we need councillors who are going to look after those deprived regions. And as I say, it's an irony that that a city councillor is arguing the case for Fenman, but I do, and I will continue to do so. And I think, if we don't get a railway station at Wisbech, we're going to get 3 in Cambridge.
Yeah.
Let's have one, just one, at Wisbech, connected to the main King's Lynn to Cambridge line. Let's do something about relocating housing in Wisbech, which is a third of the cost of housing in Cambridge. Let's have good transport links between places like Wisbech and the city, so that people can live cheaply in those places but travel cheaply and efficiently to work. And this is, this should be one of the crucial strategies that we go for. So I really will be very conscious and monitor very carefully the way in which all of the fine words at the moment about we're not going to be Cambridge centric, how that will work out in practice, and how far we will see that there are other objectives than simply the economic productivity model to justify the actions that we take in the future. And I think between now and May of next year, when the first mayoral elections take place, the mayor has got to be handed 2 things. We should be doing the preparatory work on this now. First of all, a constitution, and a constitution drawn up without the mayor. And a constitution that satisfies the constitutors that the mayor, although having an effective leadership role, will be held accountable, but not to the point where he is he or she is disabled. I can't put it any more exactly than that. The other thing which I think we've got to do is to draw up an initial list of investment needs, what the broad strategic approach will be. We could, I think, begin to really hone down on projects like the improvement of the A10, the Ely Junction, as I say, Wisbech Station, and things of this sort. But I really do believe that the work has got to be done, so that we're well prepared, if you like, with an initial wish list of investment projects by the time the mayor comes into place. And I think the criteria by which we judge investment projects have got to be as wide as possible. A couple of speakers this morning have warned us against too narrow a preoccupation with economic criteria. I utterly agree with that. I think the regeneration agenda is equally important. So is the skills training, the health outcomes, and the social care issues, and so on. All equally important criteria when we're considering in what we should invest. Finally, a word, if I may, about the troublesome question of the mayoralty. I, for a long time, thought to myself, and I'm not quite sure it reflects much credit on me, but I'll tell you quite frankly how I thought about it. If this is what the government insists upon, if they want if they insist that the deal will only work with the mayor, when what we're going to get out of it is huge infrastructure funding over 30 years, £70 million for social housing in Cambridge, 100 million for the rest of the county, mainly devoted to the Cambridge sub-region. This is big money. And all right, let's say yes to the mayor, and we'll all know that you can rename people. It seems to me that there's something about the name mayor that sticks in the gut. I can't see, if we're going to have a combined authority, presumably there will be a leader of that combined authority. There's a leader of every other authority that I've ever known of. And what you call that leader seems to me a sort of fairly theological issue. how much power, yes, that person has, how that person will be kept in check, what opportunities that person will have. Yes, these are all germane questions. But don't let's become obsessed with the notion of mayoralty as such. I think that a mayor could work because I have, but you know, the experience of Donald Trump is a worrying one because in a sense he's abandoned it, or his own party has abandoned him. He's now a partyless figure who has made this extraordinary bond with the people of a very direct nature. And you know, I was going to say, before I rose that thought, gave thought to that instance, that one of the ways in which petty party politics could be bypassed is because the mayor would have a bond with the people that would, that would transcend party politics. But I now have doubts about that proposal. So the other thing is, though, that mayors on the whole have been altogether more visible, and they have been more recognisable as responsible figures than do leaders of councils. I mean, I think Lewis is rather an exception because he's been involved in so many difficult controversies in this city, and his name and photograph and so on appear so frequently in the newspaper that if nobody in the city, if anyone in the city doesn't know that he's the leader, well then they must be singularly and self-inflictingly ignorant. But we in the case of London, where we've had Red Ken, where we've had Boris, where we've got Sadiq, where we know that Andy Burnham is wanting to be Mr. Manchester. There's no question that these figures, yes, they're celebrities, I know, but they're also figures who have established a particular kind of relationship with their electorate. And I guess in each case, they would each argue that they have made good use of that peculiar bond. Finally, did you know that under the devolution deal we shall have an opportunity for greater franchising of local bus services? And you know, that may seem to people who are not familiar with the local scene to be a pretty small beer. But the question of moving people around this city and providing efficient transport systems is one of the critical local controversies. And I would welcome a greater opportunity to engage Stagecoach in meaningful discussions about their provisions of services and the needs for different kinds of services and so on. So I can see that as being a power that would be extremely welcome indeed. So here we are in conclusion. I shall vote for this deal. I shall vote for it fully recognising its limitations, strengthened, if I may say so, in this sceptical regard by what I've heard today. But you know, politics is a matter of making up your mind, balancing pros and cons, and that's how this particular politician will respond.